I'm Rob.
And I'm Nate.
And welcome back to Rob and Nate Record a Podcast. This is our finale for Billy Crystal Month. We're going to be discussing City Slickers 2, The Legend of Curly's Gold.
From 1994.
Now, Nate, this is your first time seeing this, right?
This is.
I have not seen this. I probably saw this once in the early 2000s, maybe 2002, 2003. But I don't think I've seen it since then. Didn't his weight age as well as
Yeah, you made me think that maybe it's not so awful.
Well, I still don't think it was awful. I wouldn't classify this as awful. I was entertained at moments, but it certainly didn't age as well as I thought it might have. So, I mean, this is your first time seeing this. What are your first impressions?
It was awful. I hated it.
Really?
Yeah.
That bad?
It was really
You
bad.
weren't entertained at any point?
I laughed a couple times, but it's a bad movie. It should not have been made.
Okay. Well, so, I mean, in terms of, like, this was kind of intended as a rebound to Mr. Saturday Night, which was Billy Crystal's kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Personal project?
Yeah. Which wasn't as successful as they'd hoped for.
Serial comedy?
Yeah. It wasn't as successful as they had hoped for, and so they thought, well, City Slickers was a surprise hit. Let's go back to the well. So, what would you guess in terms of this movie's success? Do you know what its budget was?
I don't believe it was a success. No, I do not.
So its budget was an estimated $40 million. Its gross was $43 million. So it made back its money. And DVD sales, video sales, that type of stuff.
In the mid-90s, yeah.
They would have made some money.
A light profit, maybe.
They wouldn't classify it as a loss. But yeah, I mean, this was... Mr. Saturday Night was Billy Crystal's vanity project, which we discussed previously. But it wasn't the hit that they thought it was going to be for Billy Crystal. And so they thought they'd go back to what had been the sleeper. And, I don't think this is the worst sequel I've ever seen. Would you disagree with that?
So first, two things. I was just looking at the information on the director Paul Wayland. Paul Wayland also directed Leonard Part 6.
What is that?
Leonard Part 6 is a Bill Cosby movie. Also considered one of the worst, a famously bad movie. This movie is just awful. I hated this movie.
Don't sugarcoat it,
Nate. I'm very much focused on the movie.
Now, how much of this is influenced by you having bad movies this week?
I did have bad movie week, and maybe we'll get into bad movie, but this might be the worst.
No,
this of the cannot. Bad movies that I watched this week. It's just
this can't be worse than Friday the 13th.
So I was. You're right. They're pretty close though. I was looking because I usually focus completely on the movie. It's a pet peeve of me when people are multitasking. But that's how I had to do to get through this movie. And I was looking at reviews and other things about the movie, and Roger Ebert summed it up quite well when he said. This movie filled him with deja vu and indifference. It's just a far inferior attempt to capitalize off the original movie. It's just weaker in every respect. The movie it made me think of is The Miniver Story.
Okay.
Now, Mrs. Miniver is an amazing film. I love this movie. You should see it at some point if you haven't already. So about a woman in World War II and her family in England in the early days of the war and everything they go through. They made a sequel. So Mrs. Miniver came out in 1942. They made a sequel right around 1950. Follow up with the Miniver family. Let's see what happened with them after the war. When I heard this existed, I was very excited. It never should have been made. It was awful. It was a desecration of the legacy of the original movie. Everything the original film, in both these cases, did right, this movie did wrong. It was flat. I didn't feel anything. I didn't care. In the original movie, you had these funny little digressions about things, and earlier this month when we watched Forget Paris, you had these funny little comic moments like the bird in the hair and getting the semen sample to the doctors. This movie had sucking the poison out of Daniel Stern's butt. Nothing worked in this movie. And it's way longer than it should have been. If you're going to make this crappy movie, make it an hour and a half. This thing was 2 hours long. It's like an hour and 14 minutes long. You had to bring back Jack Palance. It was fine. I missed Bruno Kirby. I get what they were doing because they had Jack Palance playing the brother of the Curly character from the original film. So the plot here is they find a map in Curly's hat that leads to gold, and they end up going out to Nevada to try to find it because Curly's father was a bank robber back in the 1900s. They spend about half an hour build up, kind of like the original film, where you're doing stuff in New York and about their relationship. But they've already kind of learned their lesson. This is just a retread. It's like going back out there again a year later, because this is set 1 year after the events of the original film. I missed Bruno Kirby. They brought in John Lovitz to play the brother because they wanted to do the brother thing.
The biggest cue to me that this probably wasn't going to hold up as well was John Lovitz. I don't know that I've ever seen a John Lovitz film that I've really enjoyed.
I like John Lovitz, some of his Saturday Night Live stuff and some of his TV stuff and his voice acting, but I can't think of a John Lovitz movie that left me with anything.
I don't know if you caught on to this, but one of the things that they were trying to do to make up for, or kind of poke fun of the fact that Kirby didn't come back, is some of the lines that he's using from The Godfather are parts that Kirby's in.
Bruno Kirby's in The Godfather?
That's what I think I read. Bruno Kirby didn't return from the original, so John Lovitz is filling in. Lovett's character constantly quotes The Godfather Part 2, which Kirby was in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I forgot. It must not have been a big part. This movie did nothing for me, and it made the mistake of constantly reminding me of better movies. The original City Slickers and Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which this film borrows a lot from, very overtly, like even saying, it's the John Huston dance from Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which is a great movie. This is a bad movie. And then they do the Indiana Jones thing, and they kind of try to make it this action comedy. It's like, it's not supposed to be an action comedy. It's supposed to be ruminative. That's what the original one was. And the original one was a standalone. There was no need for a sequel. I thought we'd see more of the cow, of Norman. We see Norman once.
At the very beginning.
At the very beginning.
And they reference him in a kind of blatant, gross joke.
They do, yeah. That's a good example.
It's funny.
The milking.
It was funny, but...
But you saw it coming.
Yeah.
Almost every joke in this film you saw coming. It was just teletyped.
Yeah.
What did you think of this movie? You didn't hate it like I did.
No, I didn't hate it. It's not great. It didn't hold up nearly as well as I thought it was going to. I still was entertained by it. I laughed at parts of it. But it wasn't as good as I'd hoped it was going to be. I kind of pushed you into seeing City Slickers too because I remembered it quite fondly. And as I'm thinking back on it, I think I remembered it so fondly because I grew up camping in a lot of the areas where they actually filmed this film. So a lot of the locations where they're actually filming, that's where I grew up camping as a Boy Scout when I was a young teenager. And even before that, my dad would let me tag along when he camped with the Scouts. And I mean, Goblin Valley... I've stood in the locations where they filmed scenes of this movie. I've stood right there. And so I think I had fondness for it because of that.
And also probably because of the good feelings about the original film.
Yeah.
And it's like you do kind of want to see these characters again. And I guess Billy Crystal had said early on that he didn't want to do a sequel until they got the right script. He should have waited longer.
Yeah.
If he was going to do this at all. I don't think there was any reason... City Slickers, the original, is pretty much a perfect film for what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it just works.
Yeah.
And this didn't work at all.
I think it worked okay, but yeah, like I said, clearly I have a more favorable view of it than you do. It's not great. There's a reason it was so cheap to buy. But yeah, it was okay. I don't regret having rewatched it. It'll likely be another 15 plus years before I go back to rewatch it again, though.
I'll never see this again. And it freaking sets up a teaser ending, kind of for City Slickers 3.
Maybe. I don't think that was ever anything
serious. Not as serious, but it was kind of like a joke.
Yeah.
I think because the original one was so self-contained that you wouldn't think there'd be a sequel. So when they make the sequel, you make a joke about making more.
Yeah.
This thankfully has not and will never happen.
Yeah.
It's like Independence Day 3. Thankfully, it has not and will never happen.
He says, but they made a Independence Day 2, so, and that shouldn't have ever happened.
No.
So, kind of coming back to our broader, I guess real quick, let's rate this movie. I would actually give this movie 1.5 stars On the 10-star scale, I would give it a 5. I'm not expecting Nate will rate it anywhere near that.
1 star, maybe 2. 2 or 1 on the 10-star scale. I might even give it a 1 on the 10-star scale.
This is worse than for you than
2. I'll give
the
it
Star
2.
Wars Christmas special?
Yeah, actually, I would say that I enjoyed this less than I enjoyed the Star Wars Christmas, at least on second viewing.
That's interesting. But coming back to the broader theme of Billy Crystal Month, I still advocate that I think you should go read Billy Crystal's autobiography.
Yeah, I should do that. And
in terms of autobiographies I've read, I have not laughed at an autobiography like that. I don't think ever. But yeah, it was great.
HBO did a filmed. He did a one-man play about his father called, I think it was called 700 Sundays, and you should see that. Yeah. I'm sure it goes over some of the same territory as the autobiography. But Billy Crystal's great. It's not great here.
Yeah.
But on the whole, this is of the 4 movies we saw, this is the only one that I didn't like.
Yeah. Well, clearly.
And I think that they digressed. The order I would rank them would be the order in which we saw them. City of Slickers, Forget Paris, Mr. Saturday Night Live.
We've done this a couple months in a row where the best one is the one we see first.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of... we're going to have to work on switching this up. So... because it's kind of anticlimactic even for us. But, it's not like we've had a plethora of, we've had some bad movies that we've intentionally watched, but it's not like we've had a bad time with most of these, but it's interesting to do a theme month and have the best one be first. So we're going to have to find a way to switch it up and make sure one of our theme months here coming up that the best movies last. So, yeah. Well, anything else you want to say on Billy Crystal Month?
No.
Okay.
Like Billy Crystal, hated City Slickers too.
Yep. Do you want to tell them anything about what we're doing next month?
Well, the plan right now is we are going to be doing Natalie Portman.
Yeah. And
you are going to be putting together our list of films. I know that we were going to have Jackie on it, which you have not seen, but I've seen. I haven't seen it since I saw it theatrically.
We're going to put that.
I saw it twice in the theater.
I think we're going to push that off towards the end of the month.
That would be a safe bet, I think.
Yeah. And I think we're also planning to watch Annihilation.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And then I'm not sure. I got to fill out the others. I know we're also going to watch some shorts. We'll watch Hotel Xavier. And then I'm not sure what else. So, we'll go from there. So, and, if there's nothing else, I'm Rob.
And I'm Nate.
And this has been Rob and Nate Recorded Podcast. And now that we've had a pause, Nate wants me to indulge in a soda with him.
I've never had a soda, to my memory, of this particular flavor. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
At least partially. What flavor is it?
Huckleberry.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
Huckleberry is a flavor that you very seldom partake in any form.
I've had, not too often, but yeah. So how many sodas at a time do you buy at a time at that place?
Generally 8 to 10.
Nice.
This is called...
Give you a nice sense of it.
Yeah. Reading Draft Blueberry Birch.
Blueberry Birch, huh?
I thought it was Huckleberry.
That's good. It's smooth.
It is smooth.
Smooth and crisp.
Yeah. It is good.
Yeah.
It's better than I thought it would probably be.
A Blueberry Birch.
I wonder why blueberry is not it's not one of the big berries. It ain't no cherry.
Well, it tends to be...
no raspberry or strawberry.
I like blueberry, but you don't see a ton of blueberry juice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're juicy. I mean, my favorite muffin is a blueberry muffin. There's nothing like a good blueberry muffin with melted butter in it. Yeah.
Oh.
In fact, my last dog, if I had blueberry muffins, he'd lose his for the wrapper.
Yeah.
And if he got a hold of the wrapper, don't try getting it from him. He'd fight you for it. My new dog has not partaken of blueberry muffin yet.
Indeed.
So,
There's a kind of dog crack apparently in your house. So
it was for Rascal. So that's pretty good. I like that one.
Yeah. Oh, I'd have this again.
So is this redeem the movie at all?
No.
I just mean the experience of this evening. Let me rephrase that. Does this redeem this evening at all?
Not really. So we had been talking about this before. We're still in the economic doldrums, and we're still in the. We're not. It's not what it used to be in terms of quarantine.
Yeah.
And then we just had the freaking race riots going on last night, and now, and everything's crazy, and there's nothing to do. And so, even though I generally would watch 4 or 5 movies a week, I have been watching about a movie a day lately. And this last week, starting Memorial Day, it was just bad movie week. Like, every movie that I have seen since Monday have been bad. The movie we watched last Sunday, this Saturday night, was good. And I watched a movie called Atlantic City that night, which is also good. It's got Susan Sarandon and Burt Lancaster in it. Mm-hmm. Did you ever watch the show Boardwalk Empire?
No.
If you watch Boardwalk Empire, when you're done watching it, you should watch the movie American Hustle, which is based loosely. It has some historical context to it about Abscam, which was a money laundering, political dirty money thing that was related to the redevelopment of Atlantic City. And then the movie Atlantic. So watch Boardwalk Empire, watch American Hustle, then watch Atlantic City, and then watch Snake Eyes. There's another movie set in Atlantic City. If you decide you want to watch a bunch of stuff set in Atlantic City, that's the order in which I would watch it. So that movie was good. But the next day I watched Palagasi, which is the North Korean Godzilla movie.
Oh, yeah.
I just finished that book, a Kim Jong-il production, about the South Korean director and his wife who were abducted by the North Koreans and made to make movies. And one of the movies they made was a Godzilla ripoff. That's awful. It's bad.
It sounds like it would be bad. Did you have hope that this was going to be good?
No, I was just really interested because of the really bizarre backstory of how it was made. And it was the only North Korean film to be widely distributed outside of the Eastern Bloc, outside the Communist Bloc, but not for 13 years. It was a Japanese company got the right to distribute it, and it was out at the same time the awful Godzilla remake in '98 with Matthew Broderick was out. And the guy who's Polagasi is the same guy who was in the Godzilla outfits back in the 80s.
Okay.
The same actor, they flew him over there, and he was in the outfit. And he said that he liked Polagasi more than he liked the Godzilla '98. People of goodwill can disagree on that. I think it's a coin flip. It's a coin flip on that one. But that was a bad movie. I watched Fear with Ali Sheedy from 1990.
Okay.
Wikipedia says this was intended for theatrical release, but I don't believe it. It has the production values and the look of a TV movie. It aired on Showtime. Ali Sheedy is a police psychic, who is battling a murderer who is also psychic.
Okay.
And it is the most cliche, lazy piece of crap. They had no idea what to do with Ali Sheedy, which is true of most of Ali Sheedy's career. It's like, she's charismatic, but we don't know what to do with her. And the film ends with a confrontation at a carnival, including a chase in the Hall of Mirrors. It's the most obvious cliche thing you could put in a movie like this. I then saw The Parodying Case, which may be the worst movie Alfred Hitchcock ever made. It was the last film he made under contract with the producer David O. Selznick. They hated each other. You could practically see their bad relationship on the screen. And Hitchcock would later say that it didn't work because he kept interfering in it. And it wasn't a story he would have chosen. It's a courtroom drama. It's about a lawyer, English lawyer, played by Gregory Peck, who falls in love with his client, Adlai Bali, who's also in The Third Man. So it sounds like
it has pedigree that should have
It has pedigree.
Potential.
There's a good movie in this.
Yeah.
So his client is accused of murdering her elderly husband, poisoning him. And he is trying to defend her, and he falls in love with her, but he's married, and his wife's nice, but, he's distracted. And the twist, I'm going to spoil this movie from 1947, is she actually did commit the murder. And he finds out about it very late, and he almost destroys his career over defending this woman who wasn't worth defending. Hitchcock said that the casting was all wrong, and he probably wouldn't have picked the project to begin with. And Selznick edited the film so that the theatrical release is 18 minutes shorter than Hitchcock's release. And I don't know if that 18 minutes would have made any difference, or if the only good thing Selznick did was make the movie shorter.
Well, I was about to question if you wondered if it was re-edited into a shorter film, if it could be made good.
Well, Gregory Peck's great, but Gregory Peck's not an English lawyer. And that was one of the casting decisions. And then there's the man that Valet is supposed to have had an affair with. Hitchcock he's a stable hand, like a guy that worked for the old man. And he wanted him to be kind of rough and kind of a guy that you're like, she wouldn't have, that guy, really? But instead cast Louis Jordan, because he just got Louis Jordan under contract, a very suave French actor. You would remember him as one of the Bond villains in Octopussy.
Okay.
He plays the Indian prince, even though he's French.
Yeah.
You're just wrong for the part. And the pacing was wrong. And it's got Charles Laughton in it. And Charles Laughton is in a Billy Wilder film called Witness for the Prosecution, which is also an English court film. And that movie knocks it out of the park. That movie's excellent. This movie is blah.
Yeah.
The other films that I saw Fear and Desire, which was Stanley Kubrick's first film. He came from the world of photography. He had made a couple of documentary shorts, and this was his first narrative film. It's kind of allegorical. It's a war, but they never say what war. It's meant to kind of stand in for any war. And I think it was 5 or 6 soldiers, their plane goes down 6 miles into enemy territory, and they have to work their way back to their freedom. And they come across an enemy general, and they might have an opportunity to kill this general, and debating whether they're going to do it. There's some good stuff in it. The girl that they find this girl in the woods, and they tie her up. She doesn't say a word because she's supposed to be some kind of foreigner. She acts with her eyes incredible because they're holding her hostage, and one of them maybe would like to have his way with her. And just this look of she's always thinking, like, how do I react to keep myself alive? And how do I get out of this situation? It's a great performance. It's a cheap film. He's doing all sorts of weird stuff with the camera where he likes to put the camera on one person, but you're hearing another person talking. I think portions of this film possibly were not filmed with sound, and it was all edited in afterwards. It's an endearing film because you're seeing a guy who would be one of the masters learning as he makes this film. But Kubrick would later be kind of ashamed of it. He didn't like to talk about this film. He would have been happy if it had disappeared. Then I watched Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, which might have been the best movie I saw this week, which is a send-up of monster movies. It is Airplane Before Airplane. It came out in 1978, and it is about as funny as Airplane. And it keeps that quality up.
I'm curious, funny. How does this compare to Little Shop of Horrors?
The Little Shop of Horrors that with Rick Moranis?
Yes.
They're comparable.
Yeah.
I think this movie's probably a little funnier.
Okay.
But it's that Airplane style where it's these little... Some of these are jokes that you wouldn't do today. That you would do 40 plus years ago that might be a little insensitive. It comes across as a labor of love. There's a lot of normal people in it. There's this big scene at the end where they gather everybody who hasn't left town to face off against the tomatoes, and when they find out how you kill the tomatoes, which is... Do you ever see Mars Attacks?
Not in its entirety.
Mars Attacks takes its cues a little bit from in terms of how they got rid of the monsters.
So I started Mars Attacks, and I didn't enjoy it, so I didn't finish it. Are you surprised by that?
No, I can see that. I saw it theatrically when it came out in '96.
Okay.
I was big into Tim Burton then. I was big into retro sci-fi things then. The same year as Independence Day.
Okay.
Second Independence Day reference. So that was very much kind of the zeitgeist. I enjoyed it, but I can totally get why people wouldn't.
Okay.
And I don't think it's a super strong film.
Yeah.
And then lastly, last night, I watched the original Friday the 13th, thinking that I would start to go through the series because they're for free on Prime, but I don't think I'll be doing that because Friday the 13th was bad.
Yeah.
It was City Slickers 2 bad.
There you go.
Bad. So hopefully, Natalie Portman month.
What are you planning for this week to redeem it?
For this week, I'm doing my thing where I'm trying to go see one movie from every film from 1930 on.
Yeah.
And so I haven't crossed a year off my calendar in like a week. So I'm going to do several of my selections will be based on the year.
The year.
My plan tomorrow night is I am going to watch Something About Mary, which I've never seen. I've never seen it.
I have a feeling you're not going to enjoy it.
Oh, yeah?
And that for you, it's going to be a continuation of your bad movie.
Of the bad movie month.
I don't think... it's hard to predict whether you're going to dislike it as much as City Slickers 2 or...
I don't anticipate I'll dislike it that much. I mean, it's a somewhat influential film. People, it was well thought of by the people I was around when it came out.
I do genuinely think Ben Stiller's a funny guy.
Mm-hmm.
He made some bad movie choices.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of them.
This was a big hit for him, though. This was a hit.
It was a hit, and it was popular culturally. It never would get made today. Well, maybe it would get made today.
But it wouldn't be the hit.
No. And it was also, Cameron Diaz is also a factor in its success. Mm-hmm. This was when she was quite popular. Mm-hmm. I think it has its popularity has as much
to do with Cameron Diaz
as it does anything else.
Yeah.
You'll have to let me know whether you like that one or not. I didn't like that one, and I didn't like Zoolander at all.
Yeah, Zoolander. Yeah, I didn't care for Zoolander.
Zoolander might have some redemptive qualities that this one doesn't. Zoolander, at least you can like watch in a group and make fun of it. I don't know if I'd be able to do that with There's Something About Mary. I haven't seen that in a long time. I've only seen it probably twice ever. And that should say something given my penchant for rewatching
Yeah,
movies.
that's true.
So, yeah. On the other hand, for me, I started a remodeling project, and I'm doing a lot of painting at work, and now I don't have to do the painting, but we're remodeling our bathroom. So I don't know how many movies I'll be able to watch this week, because a lot of time will be spent around remodeling. So, yep.
Indeed.
Yeah. In fact, I don't know that I'll probably watch some movies at work, but I turn movies on at work in the background, and that's sometimes how I watch certain movies. I watched this week the Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston movie, direct-to-Netflix release Murder Mystery. Yeah, it was all right. I don't think Nate would hate that movie. Nate certainly wouldn't love that movie, but I don't think you'd hate it. It was entertaining. It was okay. But yeah, it wasn't good, it wasn't bad. So, it's not like a movie like you watch it and you're like, I regret having watched that.
You like City Slickers too?
I don't regret having watched that, but
I would have been perfect. I kind of do.
Yeah, it ruined the.
Yeah, it didn't ruin it, but the next time I see City Slickers, it will be stained by this. I won't be able to not think of this.
All right, fair enough. Anything else to talk about?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Levels are being tested.
Okay.
As is my patience.
You're not too thrilled.
Not too thrilled. No, I'm not in a great place right now, Rob.
Well, is that because of the protests or because of the movie?
Well, this movie didn't help. It's like there's been a freaking earthquake. There's been coronavirus. There's been economic depression. There's been race riots, and there's been City Slickers too.
That bad, huh?
Uh-huh.
I didn't think it was that bad, but we'll get into that. Adjust that a little.
What's your name, Rob?
My name's Rob.
And I'm Nate.
We gotta have a 3-second pause.